Yeah, that's right, I see the chat. I see y'all rocking, I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building, you know what I'm saying? Hit that like button, show your love, show your support, you know what I'm saying? This that dope soul, this that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Knick family. Welcome to the channel where we don't just create content, we create community for Knick fans to get together and talk about how we're feeling about our team. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Geoff Klafter from the Happily Ever Klafter Daily Sports blog, also resident panelist of the weekly show. And we're here to break down the Knicks comeback or bounce back win, I would say, versus the Miami Heat last night. What was it, 132, 125, or something like that. Geoff, welcome back.
Thank you.
It seems like it's been a month. I know it's only been a week. I miss you, my man. Hopefully you enjoyed the vacation with the fan. How are you, fam? How are you? And yeah, give me your quick take on the game before we get into it.
Well, first of all, I feel like I'm underwater with my internet. I don't know if that's showing that. Like, I think it's on vacation now since I was, but hopefully not. But quick take on the game. I think the word I would describe it with is versatility. Like, I really thought that this was a game where the Knicks showed that they can beat you in different ways. Like, we have our preferred formula. Like, our preferred formula is we out rebound you on the offensive glass. We protect the ball better than you. We get to the free throw line and we use those extra possessions and those extra points to kind of will ourselves to a victory. This was not that game for us. We got out rebounded. Miami did an outstanding job of keeping us off the offensive glass. Of course, we made everything under the sun, it felt like at certain points. So there are no offensive rebounds when you make the shot. So maybe that had part to do with it. But I thought they made a concerted effort. And I think if you listen to Spoelstra, he was like, you have to focus on that every possession. And he really called us the tougher team, which I thought was interesting. And then you have, Karl Anthony Towns doesn't have a great night statistically, but other people step up and fill their roles, and Jalen Brunson, destroys the world basically with just probably we'll get into it, but probably his best performance of the season, in my opinion. And we'll talk about that more in a bit, but really the versatility, and that's what makes good teams, right? They can beat you in more than one way. We could beat you in a track meet. We can beat you in a slow it down situation. We can play rough and tumble. We can play finesse. Like we have these players who are interchangeable, but also our starters, our core guys are able to switch it up. They're not one dimensional in that aspect. And I really like to see that aspect of the game where we, and especially is showing a little bit of toughness coming. This is what our fourth game in 6 nights. We didn't play well. We looked out of gas against Philadelphia. And I think maybe the performance on defense, you might say that still carried over against Miami because they got what they wanted on offense pretty much. And Khalil Ware was dominant. But they hung in there. They took back home court advantage. And this is a Miami team we struggled against earlier in the season, right? We evened the series with them 2-2. Right. So, there was a lot of noise about, we can't beat teams like Orlando and Miami. Their length is too much for us, blah, blah, blah. And, the last month or so, those narratives are becoming just that, narratives. We're dispelling those rumors out of hand and really showing that this is a pretty good basketball team.
Yeah, I agree with you. What I've been doing lately is, to your point, kind of know how the Knicks, the Knicks formula to play in basketball. And to your point, they want to limit turnovers. They want to get second chance offensive rebounds and second chance points. And they want to get, they want to shoot the 3 ball. Right. And which is great because they shoot it at really good efficiency, top 10 in the league, and they get pretty good looks, right? And off the catch and shoot. So that's what the Knicks want to do. So lately when I've been watching these games, I've been like, all right, let me see what these teams are going to take away from the Knicks. And listen, everybody in the NBA knows at this point how every other team wants to play. Like there's no secret. You know every team's formula for winning, or either you don't have the team, that can stop them, or your team on that particular night is just not executing, the game plan. So I look for that. Like, what are teams going to do? And most importantly, how are the Knicks going to respond? And to your point last night, the Knicks were out rebounded by Miami by 14 points, 14 rebounds, excuse me. Miami made 5 more free throws than the Knicks even took. The Knicks were held to just 4 offensive rebounds. Like that's our bread and butter. Only one in the first half. We only had seven second chance points. They were plus 17 in second chance points. So I think if you told Spoelstra all of these things were going to happen in the game, he would be like, "Oh wow, we got we got a really good shot of winning this game." They shot more threes than usual, 35. They don't usually do that. They make usually around 13. They made 17 and they hit it at 48.6%. So Spoelstra is probably like, "Oh, I'm feeling really good about this game." But the Knicks, Geoff, the Knicks. And this is why I'm loving this team, the versatility, how you take away one thing, they're able to go to something else. Even if it's not their bread and butter, they can go there for a game or two. To me, that's the mark of a good team. Or you have a player like Brunson. I don't care what you're doing. I'm dropping 47. Now what? You know what I mean? Like, this is our Knicks. And as well as Miami shot, 48.6% from three, the Knicks shot 52.5% from three. And I think 55% um, overall. Like the Knicks are just handling, for the most part, what teams are giving them. And there's so many players on this team, regardless of how they've played the game or 5 games or 7 games before that, who can step up in any particular game. So I'm just really, really loving this team. Where do you want to start first?
I think we have to start with Jalen, right? I mean, he dropped 47, but that's not the stat I want to talk about. The stat I want to talk about is the 8 assists and the 0 turnovers, right?
Yeah.
He became the first player all season in the NBA to have over 40 points, over 5 assists without a single turnover. That's virtuoso performance. That's why he's an MVP candidate. That's why he's on another level. Like teams game plan to stop him. And Miami's really good at game planning to stop players, and they couldn't do anything with him. He just, when he's on his game, just good night, Irene. I mean, it's just lights out. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. And, sometimes you need your best player to carry you to a win. And he had help last night, and we'll get into that. But I thought, on this night, he really carried us to a victory, and he's going to do that something. But he kind of owed us because I thought he was kind of bad against Philadelphia in terms of he couldn't make a shot, and process wasn't really the best in the Sixers game, in my opinion. So and I didn't love him the game before that either necessarily in some aspects against Indiana. So. When he has these nights where he's got the high volume and he's making in shots, which he's capable of, certainly, it's really a sight to see. But a lot of times when your star player goes for 40, 50, 60, you lose the game, right? Because other guys aren't involved. But that wasn't the case in this game at all, right? He was hot, but he wasn't hot to the point where it was get out of my way. Everybody just watch what I'm doing, and I'm just going to take it by myself. Everybody was still had to be active, and the team had 132 points overall. So the offense was clicking. We were doing a lot of great things. We were making shots. So I think probably his best game of the season and one of his better Knick performances outside of the playoffs. Because we know in the playoffs he's a riser. And that's the scary part for other teams. That's their problem. But, you really, really a great effort by Jalen. And glad to see it after a couple of, in my opinion, were rocky outings in the 2 games previous.
Yeah, I mean, Brunson is just him. And I'm just happy as a fan that I get a chance to watch him every single night. Last night I thought he was phenomenal. You know, to your point, in the other two games, he may not have played his best, but he came through with the game winner, and that just tells you in the indie game, and that just tells you something about this guy, and it tells you a lot about the good ones. You know, the good ones, they're never ever out of it, and you know, a lot of times, or sometimes, you'll hear fans saying, "Well, you know, Brunson is not playing well, not necessarily this season, but in seasons past." When he's not playing well, I just think you should just take him out and give somebody else a chance. But I think a coach knows that even if they're not playing well, the next shot could be the shot that turns it around. And even if they're not playing well, they could still hit the dagger, you know? And we have one of those. You know, we have one of those in Brunson. So we're just never ever out of it. I think there may have been some fatigue in those, you know, two games, but
Absolutely.
you know, but it is what it is. He's just that guy. And I'm so happy we have him because in the playoffs, you need that guy. I don't care how really, I mean, you can argue Indiana didn't have that guy if you're underestimating Halliburton, right? Um, but we have one of them. And so he was great. Um, I wanna, we'll get into Brunson. We'll get into Bridges, who had a great first half, and then OG, who showed up offensively in the second half. But I want to talk a little bit about Cat, who this was his first game, if I'm not mistaken, where he did not score in double digits, um, since he's been a New York Knick. He was in some foul trouble, but overall, Jeff, I don't get the sense that the Knicks are featuring Cat the way they have in the past. It seems like, last year it was Brunson, Cat, and then whoever else stepped up in that third spot on any given night, fine. What I'm kind of seeing is Brunson, and then Cat is just in there with everybody else, with OG, Brunson, whoever. And I guess my question to you is, do you feel like Brunson do you feel like Bridges and OG have elevated their game to the point that that's the way it should be? Like after Brunson, particularly the way we play offensively, it's just equal opportunity, after Brunson. Or do you feel like Cat should be featured just a little more, just given his skill set and the advantage he has against the opposing center when they're not putting him on Josh Hart pretty much every night? What's your thoughts on that? And we'll get to the
First,
chat as well.
first of all, that's a great question. I My sense of it is that I kind of want to see them feature Towns more. I kind of feel like he's an afterthought on this team a lot of times when he shouldn't be. Like and the reason I say that is because he's an elite offensive performer and not an elite defensive player, right? And so if you're
Mhm.
not giving him his touches, you're not really maximizing what he can do for you. I don't know that they're freezing him out or anything.
Oh
I
no, no, no!
I,
I
I
don't think
think
so.
I think that part of it is kind of Towns' personality. Like I think he's really willing to go with the flow, and if he's feeling it and he's on one, he's gonna shoot it. And if he's just if he's not, he's kind of content to like he doesn't usually force the action. He usually takes what comes to him, and so I from that aspect. I can see it, but to me, Towns is a weapon that should take some of the burden off of Brunson, and I don't think we're using him in that way. And I think when the playoffs come, I think that's the best way to use him. And I think and maybe this is just the Knicks saving the Towns heavy stuff till the games matter more, like when it slows down. And if that's the case, more power to us, because that's not going to be something that's necessarily on the scouting report as much. And maybe that's something. So maybe that's intentional. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving Mike Brown too much credit on that. We're a long way from that.
Hmm.
I would personally like to see Towns in actions more. I feel like, um, how do I put this? Okay, so let me put it this way. I feel like, to use a King Sacramento Kings analogy for just a moment, I feel like Brunson is more filling the De'Aaron Fox role with his fewer dribbles and better efficiency, better. I feel like he's filling that, like he's being more efficient with his movements, if not with his shooting. Fewer dribbles, those kinds of things. And so I feel like he's kind of elevating into what Fox was in Sacramento. I'm not sure that Towns is kind of getting into the Domantas Sabonis role, really. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's a mistake on the Knicks' part. I think that if he could be that hub, especially from the high post and those, I think that's well within his skill set. I think he's a better player than Sabonis, so I think the potential is there. And what's surprising about last night though with Towns is his lack of rebounding. Like that's been the staple. You say about 10 points. I think that feels like the first game he hasn't had 10 rebounds in a month of Sundays. So it was really just I didn't get to watch the game because I was traveling, but I literally said to Queen twice, I was like, did he get hurt? Why are his numbers so down? Like you just have a certain level of expectation when it comes to these guys. And I think that's one of the things that applies to Brunson too. Their level, their average level of performance is so excellent that when they aren't stellar, it feels like a disappointment when you look at it and you're like, and obviously the box score doesn't say he had a good night last night. I'm not saying, but in general, it's like, oh, well, he had 14 and 10. That's a terrible, no, 14 and 10 is not a terrible game, right? So, we tend to get spoiled, I think, to these guys about how good they can be at their peak without realizing that, hey, you're not going to be at your peak every single game. And every once in a while, you're going to have a game like this for whatever reason. Maybe it was matchup related, or maybe he just was under the weather. Who knows? Like, I'm not going to make excuses for him either. But, the important part is that Towns didn't have a great night, and the Knicks were still able to pull out a win against a playoff caliber team. And I think that's important. But I would definitely, to go back to your question, I definitely want to see the Knicks feature him more. I think I've said this before. When Julius Randle was here, the first quarter was usually his. And I feel like now it feels like Brunson kind of establishes himself more in the first quarter. And then, if whoever gets going in the second is the second, but Brunson
Right.
plays the entire first quarter a lot. And so it's obviously intentional that that's what they're trying to do. And I kind of feel like Brunson is going to do his Brunson things anyway. I don't necessarily know that we have to establish it that way. I would kind of like to see us establish Towns first, make sure that the big man eats, and then rely on Jalen more in crunch time, clutch time, as he showed in the Indiana game, he's still the guy.
Yeah. 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 I thought about the Sacramento offense too. And I'm wondering if Brown saw those two guys as pretty equal in their skill set, Sabonis and Fox, different positions, of course. And maybe he sees Brunson as being that much better and putting the ball in Towns' hands for as many times as it was in Sabonis' hands takes away from Brunson's brilliance on the ball. I wonder if that's it. That being said, though, I still think we can do it. We could see it some. I don't think it has to be zero, even if he's not using Towns as a hub as much as Sabonis was. I still would like to see it some, and I think we do. We do see it, some. I don't know how intentional it is, but right when he gets the ball, he definitely surveys this action off of him to see what they can get. I don't know the answer to the question I asked you, Geoff, because I do think OG and Bridges have really stepped up, though OG has looked a little inconsistent these past few games. um and sometimes Towns is inconsistent to me. Like sometimes I just feel like not necessarily in the shots he takes. I think they're pretty consistent from game to game, the types of shots he takes. But sometimes he's really strong with the ball and in his movement, and other times it's like, I don't know, maybe it's he's baiting a call. So to me, I just feel like he's just too floppy, like what's going on? But maybe he's trying to draw a foul. I get it. I don't know the answer if those two guys have risen their level of play to catch to the point that they should get just as many as he does. Chat, let me know what you think about that. Replay gang, let me know what you think about that, and we'll see how it plays out. But last night, you're right, he was just not not a focal point at all. Where do you want to go from there?
Mikal Bridges, 6 of 7 from three. Just, I mean, this guy is having a fantastic season. Like, it. I don't know what it. Mike Brown unlocked this guy. Like, this is the player that we expected when we traded 8,000 picks. Right. This was the impact that we were looking for. That we saw flashes of. Like, he had some superior defensive plays down the stretch against Boston in the playoffs, and he had Christmas Day last year where he absolutely lit up the Spurs and saved us in that game with I think he had a 40 piece, didn't he? And so we saw it in flash, but it's much more consistent. We've seen a defined role, a role that he's more comfortable in. I think he's being trusted with the ball in his hands more. He's being trusted in the help defensively instead of point of attack more, which I think is important because it's playing to his strengths. He's not a number 2 option, but as a number 3 or number 4, 3A, 3B, like he's fantastic, and he's like get out there and vote for Mikal because he deserves to be an all-star. Like the dude's just playing out of his mind. He's really doing it on both ends of the floor, and he his stocks are up. His shot has been good. He's just having a fantastic season, and it's just kind of funny that on a night where he hit 6 of 7 from three, the storyline is Brunson 47, as it should be, right? And that's kind of the life of an ancillary player, and I don't like to maybe that's disparaging, but that's what he is, and so but all of the Villanova guys were excellent last night, and he just continues to be a star in his role, and that's all we need him to be, right? We don't need him to be, the best wing in the league, Kawhi Leonard or whatever you want to say. He just needs to perform his role to the best of his ability, and boy is he ever. He's really, really having a terrific season.
He is. 40 minutes last night, 24 points, 18 of them, if I'm not mistaken, in that first half. 2 rebounds, 4 assists. A no steal, no block game, which is unusual for Mikal Bridges. He and Brunson accounted for 44 of the Knicks' 66 first half points. Both of them were on fire. I love the way Bridges is playing. Sometimes I feel he's a little too laid back for me, but that's just him. That's just him. He picks his spots, and when it's time to turn it up, he has that game where he can turn it up. Really love the way Bridges is playing. I want to get to Anunoby real quick. I want to get to the chat, and then I want to come back and talk about Mitch. We're going to have a big segment on Mitchell Robinson tonight. So the weekly show and the weekly preview show is tonight, combined into one, because Thursday is Christmas. We're not going on Thursday. We'll be with our respective families. But I want to talk about Mitch and Kolek after we get to the chat. But briefly, OG, no points in the first half, if I'm not mistaken, but really came alive in that second half for us. Hit some big shots. The regular defense, that he plays. Love the 3 guard lineup with OG and Mitch. I don't know. I'll take a look at the lineup data. I don't know if that's a plus lineup. If I had to guess, I would say it is with Clarkson, Brunson, and and Kolek. But just really, you know, OG was OG in the second half. 2 games before that, 1 or 2 games, he's been a little shaky. First half, a little shaky. I'm hoping that second half was just him coming back to his two way self. Anything on that before we get to the chat, Jeff?
Yeah, I kind of agree. The OG had a really bad game against the Sixers. Like he really failed. Um, uh, and Sherwin, I was not comparing Bridges to Kawhi. I was using Kawhi because he's an elite wing, and I'm saying that Bridges is not that. So let's calm down. I'm not making that comparison. I was just the first elite wing player that came to my mind, and I'm saying he's not that. So let's calm down about that. Secondly, uh, uh, OG is OG. Like I don't think he's gonna be a guy who's like the force that could carry an offense. He's going to have some games where he kind of disappears on that end of the floor, but then he's going to have games where he looks like an unstoppable force on that end of the floor. And so, uh, uh, I loved Anunoby, and I think that he's the straw that stirs the drink in those smaller lineups, right? He allows us to play smaller because of the things that he does. He can guard big, he can guard small, he can do a lot of different things. So, but I think that his defensive presence is what allows those lineups to work. Uh, uh, so yeah, Anunoby is one of one. Like I don't think there's another player in the league that's quite like him. If you look at his stats, you'll be like, why? If you just look at his counting stats, you may say, why is this guy making so much money? But then you look at his game and how he impacts winning on the court, and you're like, oh yeah, that's why he makes that much money. You know what I mean? It's he's just that kind of player, and that's defensive players are like that a lot, but he has more to his game than that, and he's had several moments this year where he's just come up with big shots for us. I think he's a really terrific corner 3-point shooter. He's good at attacking closeouts. So if you go at him, he can go and he'll finish hard at the rim. And that's an important skill, right? It's
Absolutely.
one thing to be able to just catch and shoot, but if you can combine both, you're a much more effective weapon. And I trust Bridges more with the ball in his hands. Like if we're gonna, go to somebody to get a bucket, I trust Bridges more. But I'd certainly trust OG if he catches the ball to do something good with it, whether it be, make a 3-pointer in the corner or drive to the bucket. Limiting those dribbles, of course. I don't. If he dribbles more than 3 times in a possession, makes me a little nervous. But you know.
I think OG Anunoby has crossed over, in my opinion. I think he is a legitimate two-way player who may have a bad game here and there. Whereas last year, I felt like he was mostly a defensive player, and he may have a stretch of good offense, but I saw him more as a defensive player. I still see him. The defense is ahead of the offense still, but I see him now as a legitimate two-way player who may have a bad game or stretch. And I think that's what we witnessed against Philly and in the first half last night. But he's just been really he's been so consistent. He's been more consistent than he's had inconsistent performances, in my opinion. And it's early in the season. Obviously, the rest of the season will bear this out. But I'm starting to think that he's crossed over into being a legitimate two-way player, and yeah, I'll see, the rest of the season, whether that's the case.
If
Yeah,
that's the case, league, watch out. That's all I'm going to say. Like that takes this team to another. If that is in fact the case, that's hard to. It's only 28 games, right? It's hard to
right,
like. We don't
right,
even know
right,
if
yeah,
Bridges is going to maintain what he's
right.
doing. But if you get that level of performance from Wingstop, then that makes the Knicks a really difficult team to handle. And you've seen that. I mean, we're 2 games ahead of last year's pace. Like we're 20-8 last year. I think we were 18-10. So we got to 20 games on our 20th win on Christmas Day. So we're 3 days ahead of last year's pace, I guess you could say. But and I think that the increased offensive responsibility of those 2 wings has had a lot to do with that,
Absolutely.
and some of that's come at the cost of touches for Towns, and that's something that has to be evaluated. But I think that now is the time you get those players that you take a look at those things and see what you have, so that I think Towns is more of a known commodity from those perspectives compared to those other 2 guys. So maybe now is the right time to kind of give them bigger spotlight and see what they can do with it, right? And then go from there.
Yeah, because if you're taking a long-term view, you are asking yourself what's best for the team, overall. Let's get into the chat. For those who are new here, I do like to include the chat because you guys are what makes the channel grow. And like I said, we're not just trying to create content, we're trying to create community where all the voices are heard, whether we agree or disagree. But I do want to start giving more time to the super chats. And money is tight. Well, I don't know. I don't want to count anybody's pocket, but we appreciate anytime anyone sends a super chat. And I do want to spend more time on the super chats and kind of invite those super chats into the show, so to speak, for comments by the panel. We will highlight other comments as well. Just know with the super chats, if we're gonna bring you into the panel, then we're gonna have differing views on what you say. So don't be sensitive about it, right? Sometimes I can get a little hot. It's not personal. Jason Benjamin, appreciate you rocking with us. He said, like I've always said, this Knicks team is mentally tough and resilient. We are not an easy out for any team in the league. No game is out of reach, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on that, Geoff?
I actually think that's a great comment, because if you look at a common theme with the Spurs game, with the Pacers game, and with the Heat game, all 3 wins, those are all games where we trailed by double digits. We had to fight our way back and claw our way back. And the nice thing about that, about teams that can come back and be resilient, you have to be able to do that on both ends of the floor. Like if you can't get stops, you can't make a comeback. So it's about getting, as Raw Hebrew Remnant always likes to say, it's about getting 3 stops in a row and then turning those opportunities into points on the other end. And so absolutely, I think that this team is resilient. I think that they have they're I don't know that they're tough in the 90s Knicks kind of a way, but I think that they're tough in that they can, dig deep and grind when they're in a hole, and get after it, and stick with their process of what their work has been and what they're confident in, and trust that if we execute what Mike Brown wants us to at the best level that we can, we're not out of a game. We can come back and we can we can make a game of it. And really, even the Sixers game, when we were, tank was on empty, we were right in that game until, the final score was a 9-point game, but I think it was a 3-point game with less than 2 minutes to go. So it was right there. It's just, we had a couple bad possessions in a row. But I think that this is a great comment, and I definitely agree with his perspective here.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on resilient team, and I guess you could throw resourceful in there too. Like teams are taking away what you like to do, which all teams try to do. Like this is not a secret. All teams try to take away what another team does best. But to have a team that doesn't panic and that responds. Early in the season, I thought when teams took away what we like to do best, I thought we just reverted to Brunson ball. And now when teams are, taking away, I still feel like our process is good. I still feel like, we're sharing the ball. Even if Brunson is taking more shots, for me, it just looks different. It doesn't look 1 on 15. to me. So great comment, Jason Benjamin. And listen, we can look from afar and say this team will never beat OKC. Everyone thought that Indiana would bow out in 5 max with with OKC. You never know. You never know when you get there. It's just differences in styles. Players step up, teams step up, they peak at the right time. You never know. Great comment, Jason Benjamin. I appreciate you. Appreciate you rocking with us. DJ Space Ghost, Crim's dad, Darlene Bryant, Jerrell, Lonnie Meeks. Appreciate you guys. Oh, Lonnie Meeks is reminding us, put your Knicks All-Star votes in. I think yesterday, every vote, was it yesterday or the day before? Every vote counted as 3 votes, right? So put your votes in. Remember, the fans and the media, is it 50% fans? I don't know what the breakdown is, but fans account for a percentage of getting that starting lineup into the All-Star break, right? Into the All-Star game. So be sure every day you can vote every single day. Paris Doug, I refuse to judge Brunson on the 3rd game in 4 nights Philly game. Okay. I mean, not judging him, but you can point out that, he didn't play well, even if it was because he was um tired. Is that CAA Mafia? Kolek is better than Holly. Ooh, shots fired. Shots fired. Oh man. Endgame. Appreciate you rocking with us as well. Cat should aggressively call for the ball like Julius did. Yeah. 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 See, Mitch hitting free throws makes us forget about Cat. Listen, we're gonna get into Mitchell Robinson, who has been on quite a free throw tear. I don't know if it's making me forget about Cat, but it's making me think about what's possible with him and Cat, particularly if you can play him down the stretch. I mean, I got to see a few more games, see how this plays out over the course of the season before I start closing games with Mitchell Robinson. But if this is him for the rest of the season, that does give Mike Brown more versatility in crunch time.
I had thoughts on my guy Mitch, but I'm gonna save him for tonight.
Okay. You can't establish Cat when he's hooking and pushing his defenders and complaining.
He gets a bad whistle, though. I mean,
Very.
I mean, Miami's able to do things on one end of the floor and that he's not able to do on the other. And just call. You don't have to have the same number of fouls or same number of foul shots. That's always. But if it's a foul on this end of the floor, make it a foul on that. And
on the other end,
gets bullied a lot by the referees. Maybe it's because of his reputation and complaining that they don't want to give him the call, but that's nonsense. Take your ego out of it. If it's a foul, call it. If it's not a foul, don't call it. And that includes when he does foul and he does hook and do those things. But he gets beat up without a whistle a lot. I mean, I think that it reminds me of when Patrick was down in the post, man. They just murder him and it's like no call. And then Michael Jordan gets sneezed on in the paint and it's like, and 3. And I'm like, that's not even a rule. What are you doing?
Right. Yeah. Crim's dad. I'm not a Cat fan, but since he is our supposed number 2, he needs to get the ball on offense, as Geoff stated. Trade him for Giannis if not using Cat correctly. Blame on him and Brown for this issue. Shots fired. I think I just wonder if they're tinkering around and just seeing, is the team just as good featuring Cat or not featuring Cat? The cream always rises to the top, though. The cream always rises to the top. Sherwin doesn't think Mike Brown is unleashing Bridges. He says Bridges was a top 2 mid-range shooter when he came to the Knicks. He's back to hitting the mid-range. I think it's more than hitting shots. I agree with that. He's hitting shots. His shot looks much better than it did last season. Some of the comfort is probably just your second year on the team, but I still think Mike Brown has something to do with it.
But that's a shot that we're trying to get out of diet, really, the mid-range. Like, I think that the Mike Brown philosophy comes straight from Golden State, where you take the most efficient shots, and those are three-pointers and shots at the rim. Like, I think that's very intense. Just because he's good at those mid-range shots, that doesn't mean that you know what I mean? That strength is there, but maybe it's one that is not better when it's not utilized. Like, I think at certain times, at certain stretches, when you need a bucket, you're going to have it. But those are the least efficient shots on the floor, even when you're good at them. And so, rather him take better points per possession looks, like the analytics would say, than really just play to his strengths and take shots that the offense isn't really designed to manufacture, in my opinion.
Yeah. The analytics do say that, but I don't know. Geoff, because I mean, if you take that out of his game, he's not somebody that's going to finish at the rim. So basically, he's just relegated to a 3-point shooter, right? He's not finishing at the rim. But I hear what you're saying. That's what the analytics say. But from what we've seen, even though Mike Brown may prefer that, he's still allowing him and Brunson to shoot in the rim. Now, Brunson is shooting more 3-pointers than he shot in the past, but he's still allowing them to take those shots. Otherwise, I just think it changes their game, so much.
Okay.
But you're right. That's what the analytics say. Paris Duggar, we have to also realize Cat didn't have the matchup to force his offense. Great point, Paris Duggar. David Smith, Coach Brown doesn't have Cat's back. Wow. Knicks fans don't care, but it will be a huge issue for this team if refs continue their unfair whistle on Cat. So he doesn't have his back. So you're saying that he doesn't get on the officials for not making those calls? Is that what you mean by not having his back? Okay. All right.
Lady and the Chef made an appearance in the chat. We should shout that she's listening from Vietnam. I think, is that what she said?
Yeah. I didn't get down there yet, but salute to you, Lady and the Chef. Rocking with us. Let's see if I can. Oh, here it is. Happy holidays, listening from Vietnam. This Knicks team playing using their many weapons. Still wondering if they have enough depth, even when Deuce and Shamet come back, though. Thoughts? Salute, chat. I guess I would say no if you're going by position. I think there's some positions where I feel like they can use a little more depth. If you're just talking about players that can play, I would say, yeah. I mean, Shamet is a good player, a rotation player. Deuce is a rotation player. Kolek seems to be, a rotation player. I know some people some fans may want to see more, but I think I've seen enough think that he's a rotation player. Yabusele right now isn't. Diawara, even though he's getting minutes, in my opinion, right now this season is not a consistent rotation player. So, I think you could go either way. What's your thoughts, Geoff?
Well, you can always improve, right? There are, when I was a kid, my granddad had an expression. He said, "Your Warner is working overtime." Like, you know what I mean? Your Warner is working overtime. Like, I want this, I want that, I want that. Yeah, we want, we want 5 all-stars in the starting lineup and 5 guys off the bench who are who the level of play doesn't drop off at all, which, so we're always going to have our wants, but what our wants are and what our needs are 2 different things, right? And so I think you should be encouraged that with 2 good perimeter defenders in Shamet and Deuce, the Knicks have continued to scrap and battle, and look, Tyler Kolek is making things difficult on Mike Brown. That is a tough decision when those two guys, if and when they get back, because Kolek is playing. And look, I was not on the Kolek train. You could check the tape. I'd be free to admit it. And I still think he's probably, of those three players, he's the third best among them. And that's not to slight him. I think that the Knicks just have a lot of good players, right? But what Kolek is doing, especially from on offense with the assists and getting people the ball in their shooting pocket that he's capable of, has been a revelation. But it's also the defense. Like he's not ever going to be an elite defender because of his size and he's not quickest of his feet, but he tries really hard on that end of the floor, and is not, the plus minus numbers or whatever, the defensive rating numbers are showing the Knicks are not a sieve or a turnstile when he's in the game. And if he can combine those two things, that makes him a valuable rotation piece. And it really, I'm not confident that, again, small sample size, 10 games or so, where he's really 12 games where he's really, really been good. If he keeps this up, we don't need a backup point guard. We have one in house. Right. And so that's good news. That's great to know. And he, when he does different things than Shamet and Deuce do. So maybe it just depends on, being situational within game to game. Right now, I need someone who's going to make the offense flourish a little more and get some more shots, good shots for us. So I'm going to play Kolek. And this time I may need better point of attack defense. So I'm going to play Deuce. And this time, and Deuce and Shamet very much overlap their skill set, in my opinion. I think they do a lot of the same things well. And so, Kolek's a little bit different than that. And so that versatility is good to have, though.
It is.
And he's really been a boon for us. I don't think we are on this streak where we've won like 9 of 11 or whatever it's been
without him.
Yeah,
we're going to definitely talk about him once we get back from the chat. Shout out to Lady in the Chat, fellow content creator. That's the only reason this comment comes into the panel. We kind of reserve the comments for the super chats, but Lady in the Chef is, she's her.
She's family.
So, she's family. Appreciate you. Dr. Rex, I think Mike Brown is trying to pigeonhole Cat into a role that doesn't suit him or his skill set and that he's not comfortable with. I honestly think Cat is more comfortable playing with Hulk than Mitch. That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. Paris Duggar, I was a top performer in different sports and it didn't produce. It was because of me, not anyone else. Okay. Jamrock always. I don't think they are tinkering with Cat being in or out of the lineup. I do think they're tinkering with Mitch. We'll see double big lineups with Mitch with certain teams. Yes. Yeah. And I'm encouraged by some of the things that I'm seeing. Okay, we're not going to be able to get to everyone. I hope I didn't miss a super chat. Okay.
I think we just had the one.
Okay, Jabroni. Knick fans always overrate other players and underrate our own because they're so impatient with development. They all said Grimes wasn't good. Now look what he's doing in Philly. I mean, Grimes wasn't good when he wasn't good, right? Now he's good now. Like, I always try to keep it in the moment. When Grimes was playing, I just thought that wasn't his role. It just wasn't his role to be a starter at that point in his career. He was just too inconsistent. But there's no that doesn't say anything about what he could ever be. And that's the same thing with the young players on our team, right? We could talk about who they are now. I don't know if we can say with certainty they will never be that. Timing is always the issue. When Grimes was here, we needed a more consistent player. And DiVincenzo was that player.
And do you want to pay Grimes, right? That's part of the issue too. Like,
correct.
I think if there's no salary cap, Quentin Grimes probably still a Knick, right? It's one of those things where, as a front office with aprons and all this other stuff, you have to make roster decisions that are
Right.
not easy, and they're not like, obviously if Hartenstein was, with there no cap, Hartenstein never would have been a Thunder. He would have still been here, but the
Right.
rules said we couldn't re-sign him, and so we had to make decisions on guys like uh well uh IQ
Right.
and Quentin Grimes and Julius
Right.
Randle even, and so, that's part of the calculus and the formula that makes fandom so tough. We love these players and we want them all to stay and be homegrown, and that's kind of one of the things you have to admire about Mitchell Robinson through all. He's the longest tenured Knick, what, 7+ seasons now, in a Knick uniform, and one of our own. We drafted him, and he's still here, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think context matters, though, Jamrock. Context matters. You're not going to be able to sit on all of your young players and just watch them, grow up and develop. If you're a playoff team and you're trying to win now, your window is now. Like it's one thing if your window is 5 years later, but if your window is now, you have to make a choice. Am I going to sit on Grimes and wait for him to develop? And he may develop into this window we have. He may start developing past our window. But we have somebody like DiVincenzo, who's a young veteran, who can shoot, who can play defense, who can give us what we need right now and fits better with our timeline right now. Right. So it's not always about sitting on players, right? If you play the stock market, it's not always about sitting on stocks. Sometimes you got to get off of it, right? The Knicks chose to get off of Grimes for DiVincenzo. I, for one, thought it was a better decision. In terms of putting him in the starting lineup, I thought Devo was much more ready than Grimes was for that role at the time. And then Cat came along, and the Knicks decided they were going to give up DiVincenzo. So I get it. I get it. There's some Knicks fans that you just want to draft and stash and just let these guys stay with your team, and it doesn't matter whether their timeline matches or not. Don't get better. Don't give them up. Just stick with them no matter what. They may pop in year 5, 6, and 7. Just stick with them. That's not the reality of an NBA team. Right? You can look around the league. Teams don't, if they're in a championship window, how many teams just sit? Shea Gildress Alexander was traded because he didn't fit the window, right? It happens. It just happens all the time. Anyway, too much time on the non-super chats. I apologize. Parish Duggar, pigeonholed Cat is 9-1 in his role, a winning role. All right, cool. Appreciate that. I guess we won't, we'll still talk a little bit about Robinson. We're going to do a deep dive tonight. He's hit 10 of 10 free throws over the last 10 games, getting a little more air, under him. Last night he didn't miss a free throw. Plus, let me see. Oh, I put it plus 9.7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. Um, him and Cat had to deal with Khalil Ware, who was just a load last night. And I think he was pretty focused too because he was outplayed the time before. So usually when that happens the next time around, you're much more locked in. And he was locked in. I think 5 of 6 from the 3-point line. But Mitchell Robinson, free throws notwithstanding, I don't know if that's going to continue. He's looking more mobile. He's looking more bouncy. He's looking much better on the defensive end. It was like a 6, 7, 8 game stretch where I was like, I don't know what's going on. Rim protection, defensive wide, Mitchell Robinson is not looking right. But these past 2, 3 games on the defensive end, he's looked like himself. And I think that bodes well for the Knicks. Whether or not these free throws continue, like that would be like over the top if it did. But even if it doesn't, him rounding back into defensive shape is great.
For sure.
Yeah. Um Okay, yeah, you're gonna save yours for tonight. All right, cool.
Yeah, I want to save mine for.
I know.
I got to tease him a little bit. I've been saving some stuff
Yeah,
up on my.
yeah.
I
And
don't want to spend it all right now. We got another show that we've got to get the people through. So no, but I think that Robinson is a valuable piece. I think that, you know, well, I don't want to spoil, but I agree with you. Let's just put it that way. I agree with you. But again, the defense hasn't been like amazing with him on the court the last couple of games. Like, we didn't defend particularly well against Philadelphia. And we certainly didn't get any points for defense from anybody last night. We gave up 125 points. They shot, 48% from three. I mean, so we weren't exactly like locking anybody down. Now the San Antonio game, I thought he was phenomenal. Like, really, really good. And he does that sometimes. Like, he'll take a specific challenge against a particular player or and rise up and really have an outlier of a game, and that he has the ability to rebound in spurts. That's unlike anything I've ever seen. Like, who gets 15 rebounds in 18 minutes but Mitch? Like, he's the only person I know who really can do that, and not on a completely consistent basis, but like once every fourth game, he just seems to put in one of those performances.
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely going to get into it tonight. I do want to talk about Kolek. I thought Kolek responded well from his performance in the Philly game with 4 turnovers. They was really going at him and scoring. And listen, when you're a young player, it takes time. You got to go through the league. You got to see different teams. They're going to throw different things at you. Once you start playing well, now you're on the scouting report. Even if you're not at the top, you're on there, somewhere. Watch out for this guy when he comes in the game. This is what he likes to do. This is all part of his development, like seeing different things and how he responds. And after that game against Philly, I said to myself, this is good. This is good. I want to see how he responds the next game. And 6 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, no turnovers, plus 16 for those into plus minus. But one time he was guarding Andrew Wiggins, and obviously Wiggins is, he's given up 6 inches, 5-6 inches, to Wiggins, but he held his ground. He was super tough with his, with his base and what have you. He's in his process. I will say that, and it was just good to see them go back to him. I think he had 21, 22 minutes last night. And for him to respond, and respond to me isn't about the box score. Like, respond to me isn't like, oh, he came back out, he had 14 points and 8 assists, and no, like, he came out and he played his game. He wasn't thrown off. He was still confident. He focused in, a little bit more, and he made a contribution to the team. That's what I mean by bouncing back. That was good to see from Kolek.
Yeah, I think Kolek, couple of things. First of all, Philly's just a bad matchup for him. When you have Edgecombe and Maxey, there's no place for him to hide, and they played those two guys practically the whole game. So that makes it tough on Tyler to begin with. But to me, Tyler is like a backup quarterback in the NFL. When you have a team that's a great defensive team and runs the ball well, you just need him to be a game manager, right? You get a setup in the offense. Do the little things well. Get everybody organized. Right. Don't turn the ball over. Don't make silly mistakes that are going to beat us, right? And for the most part, other than the Philly game, that's exactly what he's doing. High assists, low turnover numbers. Making shots when they present themselves, and those are the things that you want from your backup. He's not an all-star, right? We don't expect him to be, but he is an effective player when he's in the lineup. When he's his ability to hit people in their shooting pocket is, I've rarely seen a point guard as good as him at doing that particular skill. And I don't know how valuable that skill is from a, what I mean, in a grand scheme of things, rotation minutes kind of away. I don't know how much how much that skill earns you. But if you do enough of the other little things, then that skill gets to shine in your role as a reserve point guard, as someone who can not only back up Jalen Brunson, but play alongside Jalen Brunson. And that's a game changer, right? And we've seen that with Clarkson too, right? We can play these guys together. And what that does is that when injuries happen, that opens up your minutes, right? Because if you can play alongside Brunson, I can play you more than the 12 minutes he doesn't see the floor, right? You can get 20 minutes, you can get, and so that's a big thing. And when we have two of our shooting guards injured right now, he's able to fill that role a little bit. And so he's just, he's got to continue. But shout out to my guy DJ Shuttle, who was on the Kolek train from the beginning. I liked what I saw, but I kind of lost faith in him, especially through summer league and the preseason. I thought he was literally on his way out of the league. And he doesn't pay attention to that noise. He just works harder. And that's exactly what he does. Like Brunson even said, he's always in the gym same time I am, and I'm always the first player in the gym. And so kudos to him for, you're not the most talented guy. You've got to outwork everybody else. And it seems like that's his personality. So good on him.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get back to the chat, and then we are out of here. Parish Duggar, Yabu, and Daddy A for Sadiq Bey is the finishing move. I like Sadiq Bey. He can help us now. I think it goes back to that same old argument we were just talking about. Like, do you give up future talent when you're in a championship window for players that can help you now? Right? Daddy A may go on to be an all-star, but I don't think he's going to be an all-star in the next year or two, right? During the next, championship window. So for me, I love Sadiq Bey. The only thing about that is you're bringing in somebody who, is he going to be situational? Is he going to command minutes? Yabu is not playing a lot of minutes. Daddy A, he was a DMP last night, and Daddy A is not playing at all. So you bring in Sadiq Bey, you're not taking out any rotation players. What does that mean? That means somebody in the rotation becomes situational. Unless Sadiq Bey is, and I wouldn't think that you would give up two players, particularly a young player, for somebody who's going to be situational, right? You're bringing in somebody who's going to be in the rotation. I like him.
Sadiq Bey usually in the hospital bay. Like
no, he's back. No,
I don't. He's a very injured player.
I don't know about. I don't remember him being very injured, but I know he did have a season-ending injury. Okay. But he's back now. I think he's averaging like 14.6 rebounds. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And some people will say, what is he? New Orleans, right? He's playing on a bad team. An ass team, right? But he's still going up against NBA competition. He's
got decent size though, doesn't he? I mean, he would be.
He does, and strength.
So that's one of the archetypes that we've talked about, right? The point guard was one, and we seem to be more confident in Kolek in that regard. The wing who can defend and make some shots is another one, and he certainly fills that mold. How big is Sadiq? Can he play the four at all, or is he strictly I don't know his game very well.
He's 6'6", 6'7". He is strong though, but he would be an undersized four. He would be taller than Josh Hart at the four, but when Josh Hart does play the four, but he's I think he's 6'6", 6'7". Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But quickly, Geoff, where do you stand on that? Is it holding on to young talent past the championship window, so they may or may not pop in that window, but they at least give you an opportunity to kind of start over when that window closes? Or are you on, if you can get somebody that can help you win the chip within that window and you have to give up young talent, it's worth it?
I don't think any of our young talent is so good that you can't trade it for a piece that's going to help you in the here and now. Like, it could be that Pacome Daddy A turns into something, but it also could be that he's the next Frank Ntilikina, right? We don't know. Like, right. And with most trades, you have to give something to get something. And so if that's the cost of doing business, for lack of a better phrase, I think that's fine. It's one of those things that do you trust? I think if you ask yourself the question, would you trust having Sadiq Bey in your rotation more than Mohamed Diawara? And I think most of us would answer yes. And so I think that you have to consider that. And yes, I said the same thing about Tyler Kolek, and I would still say the same thing about Tyler Kolek, by the way. Like, if you have a chance to a legitimate upgrade on the roster and it takes Tyler Kolek to trade him, to make the deal happen, I'm good with that. Like, that's that's what you do, is you parlay good assets into better ones, right? And so there's no such thing, or very rarely do you have a trade in the NBA that doesn't hurt a little bit, right? You're always going to have to give up something to get something. We're a team that doesn't have a lot of draft capital to deal right now. So that means if you're going to make a trade, you're going to give up a player that's another team wants, right? And I'm not saying that there's an upgrade right now from Tyler Kolek. I don't know who that player is. I'm just saying that if it becomes available and you get a guy that's out there who can do the job better, then you can't be worried about getting rid of him. Like, and I'll stand by, like, the only player in my opinion on this team that should be untouchable is Jalen Brunson. Everybody else in the right situation, the right deal, and I'm not saying in any deal, like, I'm not saying just get rid of them and have a fire sale, but in the right deal, I think everybody else, and even with Jalen Brunson, if that was the cost of the Joker, for instance, and it's not, but I'm just saying, if that was, you would have to consider it, right? And so you would have to retool your team a lot with that, but again, so there's no absolutes, I would guess, but Brunson is the most untradeable piece to be. But other than that, like, I love these guys, but I want to win a championship, but more than anything. And so, I was really high on Alvarado, but the way that Kolek played, I don't really want to make that trade anymore. If we get the current version of Kolek, I'm not as sold on what Alvarado brings, and Alvarado may still be a better player, but I'm less inclined to make that deal with the way that Kolek's played over the last 2 weeks. But that doesn't mean how he's played over the last 2 weeks doesn't guarantee that's how he's going to play over the whole season either. Like,
and in the playoffs, I do want to get to this, and somebody in the replay gang, because the replay gang, I appreciate you guys. Like, some of you be coming with a book. Like, some of them were coming with like 4 or 5 paragraphs to really explain your point. And so I would love for you to explain this to me, because this is something I don't get. And so Darkosaurus is saying, you said that about Tyler Kolek. How did that work out? Your eye for talent isn't exactly trustworthy at this point. Selling low on a 6'8" scoring wing is asset mismanagement. This is what I need somebody in the replay game, because I don't know if you get enough characters in the chat. This is the question. Does winning the championship matter? Does winning a championship matter more than developing a young player for a time past your championship window? Because for me, that's the question. That's the question. You're holding on to first of all, why do you want to develop young players? Why do you want to develop young players? Because you hope they turn into all-stars, all NBA players, so that you can win a championship, right? Like, that's why you hold on to your young talent. You want them to grow, become their best selves, so that you can win a championship, okay? If you're in position to win a championship now, and that cost you one of those young players, doesn't it make sense to make that move to strengthen your chances of getting a championship in the current window, rather than not making the trade and hoping that that player becomes an all-star, all-NBA player that can be a part of a championship team 5 years later? Maybe I'm so off on this. Maybe I'm so off, but I just can't get in my head when you're right here in the window, why you would hold on to a player who's Daddy A, in my opinion, from what I've seen, he might. But if I'm playing the percentages, I don't see him popping within the Knicks championship window. He very well may. But I have to ask myself, if I can get a Sadiq Bey, who I'm pretty sure, no guarantees with Yabusele, no guarantees. When Kyrie Irving went to Boston, no guarantees. There's no guarantees. But if I feel my chances are better in this, like, should we call it a 3-year window, Geoff?
Yeah.
If I feel my chances are better in this 3-year window with a Sadiq Bey over a Daddy, why wouldn't I do it? Why? Now there could be salary cap reasons why I couldn't do it, right? There could be Sadiq Bey puts us in the second apron because he makes so much more money. Is that something we want to do because we're going to lose flexibility? Like that, and that context is important in today's. I get it. I get that part. But just talent for talent. Now, sometimes you see something in a player, like people always try to compare our young guys to OKC's young guys. I don't know. I don't know if it's the same level of talent. Maybe it is. I don't see it. But somebody in the replay game, not enough characters here to explain to me why you wouldn't take advantage of this championship window. We traded IQ and RJ, and people will point to, oh, look, they become really good players 4 years later. But those players got us OG, which helped us get into this championship window now. And OG is well ahead, in my opinion, of an IQ or I feel we're a better team with OG right now than if we had IQ and RJ. Some people may disagree because, we'll have a bench player and two-star, maybe. But it happens all the time where you give up young players to maximize your window, then holding on, hoping they could become the same exact thing you right now where you're at so that you could become a championship team later on. So listen, this Kolek, and I'm speaking for you, Geoff, Kolek is not about recognizing talent. It's not about recognizing talent. It's about who's going to help this team get this chip. That's what it's about. It's not about talent. This is chip talk. Who's going to help the Knicks get a chip? Do you want to bet on the talent of Kolek being who he is right now in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference semis? Or do you want to hedge and say, you know what? We'll still play him, but we're going to have a backup on the bench? Or I don't want to take that chance. That's not about talent. It's not about talent. We see the talent. It's not about that. It's about, will this talent hold up under the pressure cooker of a playoffs, and do I want to take that chance as an organization? That's what it's about. It's not about talent. Geoff, anything to add, or anything you disagree with, or you want to add? And listen, if I'm off base, there's not enough characters in the chat. You're gonna have to go to the replay where I get my book summaries. That's where the book summaries is on shout out to the replay game.
And part of it, I think, is this. And look, Dorgasaurus Rex, I'm wrong all the time. Like, I've never and never will pretend to be the be-all, know-all about basketball, about the Knicks, about anything else. What I do is I look at how things are given the present data, the information that we have in the here and now, right? On a player, what they're doing, what they've done historically, and use that as how I judge things. And prior to this season, Tyler Kolek had played in exactly 21 games in the NBA, and now you're ready to hand over the keys to the backup point guard to him to win the championship. I'm here to tell you that when if Shamet and Deuce come back healthy, his minutes are going to decrease again. That's why he's in the lineup. And kudos to him for taking advantage of all of the minutes that he's getting. And I'm glad to be wrong about that. But you know, look, you can only go by what information is available at the time. And if you looked at how he played in summer league and how he played in the preseason, and you saw this, then kudos to you. You're smarter than I am. You see the game better than I do, and a lot of people do. By the way, I'm not, you know, I'm not a guru by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just a guy with an opinion, like everybody else. And so, you know, if you want to gotcha me and take receipts about this player and that, you're going to have plenty of paper to stack up, because it just happens. And when you say enough things, you're going to be wrong a bunch of the time, right? And so, look, if I'm wrong about Tyler Kolek, great. If he becomes the backup point guard on a championship team, awesome. I'll be happy to have that egg on my face. I will eat the crow, whatever you want me to do.
But did you say he would never be that, Geoff? I didn't hear you say he would never be that. I hear you talking about him right now.
Right. Exactly.
That's two separate things.
And how do you know about the right now if he's never, like you have to, you're having faith on someone doing something that they've never done before, right? And
Right.
so so that's where I take it.
Right.
You know, I guess I'm just skeptical and pessimistic that a guy who's never done it before is just going to all of a sudden be able to do it. And
You mean in the playoffs?
in the playoffs, and yeah, in games where it matters.
Right. And listen, Geoff, he might.
He might.
The question is, as an organization, is that a chance you want to take? That's it. He might. You know, two things can be true. But again, this is a different question. We're not talking about developing young talent and still competing. That's not the question on the table. The question on the table is, if you have an opportunity to get somebody like Saddiq Bey in your championship window, do you not do that because you want to develop a player who may pop well before after your championship window and not be the player Saddiq Bey is within your championship window? Like, we switching it up. We're moving the goalposts. Yes, you can compete and develop young players. Yeah. They can come in and give you really good minutes. That's not what I'm talking about anyway. I'm talking about going into the playoffs, mitigating as many risks as you can. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about winning a chip, taking advantage of your championship window. Can you have young players come in over the course of a 16-game championship season, playoff run, and give you good minutes? Absolutely, you can. We saw it with Brown in Christian Brown, his name is, right, with Denver. We saw it with him. But somebody coming in and giving you good minutes is not the same as counting on somebody game in and game out in a key position like the backup point guard to Jalen Brunson. Those are two separate things. Two separate things. Right? So let's see what the Knicks do. This is the Knicks, and Tyler Kolek is making it hard, you know, on them. That's the question they have to ask. Do we see enough to believe that in the playoffs, he can do the exact same thing he's doing now in less minutes? If you're playing behind Brunson's playing 40 minutes in the playoffs. The backup point guard is going to get 8, but he's also seeing minutes with Brunson, as well. That's the question they have to ask. Knowing what we know about young players, seeing what we're seeing about Kolek right now with Kolek, do we believe he can be the same player in the playoffs? That's a question they have to answer. But I think, but Dr. Soros, relax, yo. Relax. You're fighting with shadows now. Nobody is talking about Kolek's play right now. He's playing well. We got the macro. We're talking about the macro right now. And if you believe he gonna be that in the playoffs, you're entitled. You're entitled to it. Okay, we all have different opinions here, right? This is the collective. It's okay to have different opinions. This is why we have the discussion to understand different different points of different points of view. And please, I'm really looking for that essay. Don't disappoint me. Give me that essay in the recap comments if you're seeing something that I just don't see when it comes to a championship roster. I just don't. I can't get it. I can't get it. I'm not coming. Okay, I'm encouraging you guys and applauding you guys for having the important discussion. It's a valuable conversation for. Yeah, it is. It is. It is. And it's really, we don't have to come to the same conclusion. I just understand that you guys believe in these young players, that they are going to come through in the playoffs. And I think that's great. I don't know how old you guys are, but I've been around a long time. I've seen 40 years worth of playoffs, and I've seen some young players come through. Don't get me wrong. I have seen that. I've seen a lot of young players struggle in the playoffs, despite what they do in the regular season. And I just don't want the Knicks. I need the Knicks to have some backups to the backups. That's that, you know. Um, you know. Anyway, anything else?
What a great discusussion. I don't mind it at all. I just coming to you from my perspective and where I'm at.
Absolutely.
And look, I will be the first to admit I am terrible at the evaluation of young players in football and basketball. Like I kind of have to see it, and then when I see it, I recognize it. But like, when it comes to there are certain players I thought were surefire stars that get to the NBA and they're not anything. And like, I'll give you an example. I didn't think Dylan Harper would be as good as he's been in San Antonio this year as a guy who roots for the Scarlet Knights. His defense his defense in San Antonio is off the charts, and his ability as a lead guard, he's doing a tremendous job. And so I just think that sometimes players pop and sometimes players don't. And the higher the leverage situation, you get to find out more about players. And look, sometimes really good regular season players who are veterans don't pan out in the playoffs. We've seen that a lot too, right? Absolutely. And so, just because you're a veteran player doesn't mean you're guaranteed to do that. But that's the kind of I'm going to call it my Jordan Clarkson hope. Right? Because Jordan Clarkson in the past has gone into high leverage situations in the playoffs and played well. I know who he is as a player. I'm never going to like his efficiency, but I think there's going to come a point in the postseason, maybe in a fourth quarter, when we need a bucket and he's going to be able to drive into the lane and either get fouled and get a quick 2 points, or he's going to collapse the defense and spray out to a 3-point shooter. Or, I don't have a lot of confidence he's going to hit a 3-pointer, but it could happen. But
it was 60% last night, Joe.
I know.
He was over 60% from 3 last night. He's been more efficient the past 2 games.
That's what I'm saying. No, it could happen. It could happen. So, but he has tape, right? That's what I'll say. He has tape. I have tape, and when I have tape, I can make a more educated decision about how I feel like he's going to respond in a given situation. I don't have tape on Tyler Kolek in a high leverage clutch situation outside of college, right? And he was excellent in college, and I remember him being excellent in college. But this ain't college, right? This is the league. And when you're talking about the playoffs, if you're talking about having him go up against an Alex Caruso, for instance, in the finals, I'm not sure how comfortable I am with that matchup. Just gonna put that out there, and that's just one case. And that doesn't mean he wouldn't go in and he could handle the situation just fine.
Absolutely.
I don't know, but that's the point. I really don't know. And the more I want to my goal for this team is to have the levels of uncertainty as low as possible, right?
Facts.
There are no guarantees. Yes, obviously, anything can happen, but the fewer question marks that you have, the more checkbox that you can tick off, the more answers that you can provide and be comfortable with, I think that's the better off that you're going to be. And I'll use an example as a vet. Yabusele, I'm not comfortable with. I wasn't when we signed him, and I like him even less now. It doesn't mean he couldn't turn it around and figure it out. He certainly could. But, that's what I've seen, and I don't trust him going into the playoffs. So I trust Kolek now more than I trust him, which I didn't think would be the case. So it's a spectrum, and it's something that is evolving over time, which is what our opinions should do. I shouldn't be static in my Knicks thought bubble, right? That's why I'm on this show, because your opinion, Dorkosaurus, changes mine. Queen's opinion changes mine. Jerrell, Shuttle, all of these great basketball minds. Look, you learn by being around people that are smarter than you, and you take those and they sharpen your sword, and you hopefully sharpen theirs at the same time. And that's what this is all about. And that's why this community is so special, is because we get to have conversations like this in an honest way.
Right. Listen, I wait for players to pop. Bottom line, I wait. Everybody was all on Deuce McBride shooting 0.23% because he played good point of attack defense. Okay. I waited. Third year, those shots started going down. Now and I remember saying, point of attack defense is not going to be enough. He either has to develop into a playmaker or he has to start shooting the ball. You got to have two of those three. Was it year 3? He started knocking down shots. Now we talking. I'm not, and maybe this is because I'm old. Yeah, you guys have to keep in mind, I'm not sure what the ages are in here. I'm old. When you old and you've seen a lot, you can't get too excited. Blood pressure going up over somebody's 20-game stretch. You know how many 20-game stretches I've seen? No. I need to see you. Right. I need to see you for a few years. Years. So when everybody was on the Deuce train, I was not on the Deuce train. Year 3, all right. You're looking like a rotation player now. Year 3. That's just me. Kolek, I'm gonna give him kudos for what he's doing right now. But am I gonna sit here and say he's gonna be a starter in this league? No. I need to see 2 years of Kolek, me personally, before I start talking about who he's going to be. I'm not going up and down with these stretches, 20, 25 games. I just need to see a few years. You only need to see 5 games. It's fine. No disrespect. Jamrock, always appreciate you. How bad does the AJ Mitchell trade to OKC look? Listen, the Knicks traded the pick. Did the Knicks trade the pick for a reason? Did the Knicks trade the pick because they didn't like AJ Mitchell? I don't know. Jerrell, I know you follow the draft. Do you remember why the Knicks traded the pick? I don't remember why the Knicks traded the pick. You know, a lot of times we point out things about what the Knicks are doing with their first round picks. We're looking at the talent, but you also have to look at why they did that and what it allowed them to do. So I don't remember why they passed on AJ Mitchell. I can't tell you. But you got to take the context into account, right? Oh, look at what RJ and IQ is doing now. Yeah, but look at what OG is doing now and look at where the team is, right? So context matters as well. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. Always great discussion. Did I miss another one? I don't think I did. Okay, I think, yeah. Jamrock, always, I appreciate the super chat. Jason Benjamin, I appreciate you as well. We're on tonight, 9:00. We're gonna talk about the state of the Knicks from the last time we had the show. We're gonna talk about Mitchell Robinson, what we're seeing of late. We're also going to preview next week's games as well, because we would usually do the weekly preview show tonight. So we'll preview this week's games, I should say. And then we'll see if there's anything going on in the Eastern Conference that, pertains to the Knicks. I appreciate everybody, dropping on. Latoria B was in the house. Jabroni, Randu, I appreciate you. Dorkosaurus Rex, I appreciate you. Appreciate you and your insights. And it's just about understanding. I understand where you're coming from. Hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. We don't have to agree. Paris Duggar always rocking with us. Sherwin was in the house. Kerry Cox.
Jamrock put in a super chat last second.
Another one. Okay. Kerry Cox was calling for OG, man, for 2 years before he finally got here.
He was definitely on the train.
Traded him for the 40th pick and cash. So there might have been a reason, right? What pick was that? Was that wasn't a first round pick, was it?
No, it was a second round pick. We took Kolek 4 spots ahead of that. And I think it might have been roster space issue too.
Right.
You only have so many roster spots for second round picks, and
Right.
salary cap implications and all of those sorts of things too. And so,
Right.
look, sometimes a fish is going to get away, right? That's
Right.
how it is,
So it was in the same draft as Colt. Maybe they didn't want, to your point, maybe they didn't want two second rounders. Maybe they were higher on Kolek than they were on AJ. Listen, this happens all the time. You pass on, how many teams passed on Donovan Mitchell? How many teams passed on Shea? This is what happens. You pass on a player and they pop. You pick a player really high, Ntilikina, and they don't pop. It happens. It happens. But I appreciate you. Latoria B said it's definitely an age thing. Gen X way more skeptical than most.
We've lived through a lot of pain, Latoria B. A lot of Knicks pain during those.
AJ Mitchell was selected third. Okay, Darlene, I appreciate you. Then all of us, I don't know. It's not about talent. Come on, we keep saying the same thing. It's not about talent. We know Kolek is talented. We're talking about the playoffs and what we need down the stretch in the playoffs. That's it. We're talking about so many different things. Anyway, I'm not gonna get to everybody. This was a poppin' show. The comments was popping. The coolest. It's been a minute. The coolest 718. Appreciate you, Crim's dad. Jamrock is always. Trav B. He is injured, so he's talking about who you were referring to, Sadiq Bey. Trav Brian Music. I appreciate you. He's injured every year, so you were right. Geoff. Luke Skywalker. Yeah, I'm not going to get to everybody, but listen, this was a banging show. I was only expecting to be here for 45 minutes. You guys make this so fun. Geoff, you make this fun. Looking forward to the replay gang and the comments. I'm looking forward to my essay. Come on now. Somebody help me out, because clearly I think I'm
understand that.
Yeah, I think I'm missing something. But yeah. You're welcome. Anything, Geoff, last minute?
No, let's get after it tonight too. This is the warm-up. This is the appetizer, the Sousson main course tonight with Jerrell and EJ and the gang. So
yeah. Looking forward to it. All right, till next time, fam.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Dope Soul.
Where you at?